Hi everyone, in this video we are going to solve multi-step equations and inequalities. So for multi-step equations and inequalities, first make sure you simplify each side by either distributing and or combining like terms, and then use inverse operations to get the variable by itself. Remember though, you need to reverse the inequality sign if you multiply or divide by a negative number. So solve each inequality or equation algebraically. Check your solution. Negative 2r plus 1/3 minus 5/2 r equals negative 4 1/6. First, I have to combine negative 2r minus 5/2 r. And I'm using my calculator to help me with this. So negative 2 minus 5/2 gives me negative 4.5 r. Plus 1/3 equals negative 4 1/6. Now I have it simplified so I can start doing my inverse work. I'm going to subtract 1/3 from both sides. So I get negative 4.5 r equals, again I'm using my calculator to help me, negative 4 1/6 minus 1/3 gives me negative 4.5. My next inverse, I'm going to divide by negative 4.5 on both sides. And I get my solution, r equals positive 1. So now for my check, go back to the original. Everywhere there's the r, I'm going to put in my solution, r equals 1. So I get negative 2 times 1 plus 1/3 minus 5/2 times 1, hopefully equals negative 4 1/6. Multiply out each term on the left, so negative 2 plus 1/3 minus 5/2, hopefully equals negative 4 1/6. Now I'm adding negative 2 with 1/3. I get negative 1 2/3 minus 5/2, hopefully equals negative 4 1/6. And now negative 1 2/3 minus 5/2 gives me negative 4 1/6, which is what I was hoping for. So we proved our solution made the equation true. Our next example. 1/2 times the quantity 4 minus x is greater than or equal to negative 2/5. I'm going to start by distributing that negative 1/2 through, or the 1/2 through. So it becomes 1/2 times 4 minus 1/2 times x is greater than or equal to negative 2/5. After you distribute, multiply it out. 1/2 times 4 is 2. Minus 1/2 x is greater than or equal to negative 2/5. Now we're doing our inverses, so we're going to subtract 2 from each side. Be careful of your signs. You still have negative 1/2 x is greater than or equal to negative 2/5 minus 2 is negative 2 2/5. Our next inverse, we're dividing by negative 1/2. Remember, you're dividing by a negative, so you have to remember, switch your inequality sign around. You get x is less than or equal to 4 4/5. So for my check, I can use any number below 4 4/5. So I'm going to use 0. So if x equals 0, go back to my original. It's 1/2 times 4 minus 0 is hopefully greater than or equal to negative 2/5. 4 minus 0 is 4. So we get 1/2 times 4 is greater than or equal to negative 2/5. And 1/2 of 4 is 2. So we get 2 is greater than or equal to negative 2/5, which is true. So we solved our inequality correctly. Okay, our last example, a little bit bigger here. 3 8/10 times the quantity 2x minus 4/10 minus 2 1/10 times the quantity 5 minus 3x is less than negative 1 1400. So on that left-hand side, I have to distribute twice. In the first set of parentheses, I'm distributing the 3 8/10. In the second set of parentheses, I'm distributing negative 2 1/10. So be very careful of your signs. So we get 3 8/10 times 2x minus 3 8/10 times 4/10 minus 2 1/10 times 5 minus 2 1/10 times negative 3x, don't forget that negative sign, is less than negative 1 1400. Now I have to multiply out each term. So 3 8/10 times 2 is 7 6/10x minus 3 8/10 times 4/10 is 1 5200. So minus 1 5200 minus 2 1/10 times 5 is 10 5/10. Now we have negative 2 1/10 times negative 3, which makes it positive or plus 6 3/10 x is less than negative 1 1400. Okay, so we distributed, we multiplied, now we're on to combining like terms. 7 6/10 x can be put with plus 6 3/10 x. When I combine those together, we get 13 9/10 x. We can also put together negative 1 5200 minus 10 5/10. When I put those together, I get minus 12 200. And it's less than negative 1 1400. Okay, now I'm ready to do my inverse work. My first inverse, I'm going to add 12 200. When I do that, I get 13 9/10. X is less than 10 8800. My next inverse, I'm dividing by 13 9/10. Okay, and I'm getting, I have to write the entire thing down. X is less than 0.782733,813. Okay, so now we're ready for our check. I can use any number below this, so I'm going to use 0 if x equals 0. I'm going to go back to my original, so I have to scroll back up to see it. So I get 3 8/10 times 2 times 0 minus 4/10 minus 2 1/10 times 5 minus 3 times 0 is less than negative 1 1400. Okay, multiply them out in the parentheses. So 3 8/10 times 0 minus 4/10 minus 2 1/10 times 5 minus 0 is less than negative 1 14/100. Simplify those parentheses still, so 3 8/10 times negative 4/10 minus 2 1/10 times 5 is less than negative 1 14/100. Multiply it out. 3 8/10 times negative 4/10 is negative 1 52/100 minus 2 1/10 times 5 is 10 5/10 is less than negative 1 14/100. And finally, we're doing the subtracting on the left-hand side. We get negative 12 2/100 is less than negative 1 14/100. And that's true. So our inequality was solved correctly. I hope this video helps. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.